Have you ever wondered what global collaboration might look like? A collaboration that releases us from past and present folly. This is what we shall be envisioning during this presentation. And it's with many thanks to Ian Roderick and the Schumacher Institute for offering this opportunity to share my imagination with you. Elon Musk is now inspiring a culture war against fascist-leaning oligarchs, especially those who've bought up the megaphone of the mainstream media. This float was photographed in Germany. The letters AFD on his nappy signify his association with the far-right political party Alternative für Deutschland. His infantile behaviour is acknowledged by his outfit, and the American flag that he is waving has been cut down to represent a swastika. His megaphone is labelled X and is shown with poo oozing out. The matrix that is shown here appears on the website for the Schumacher Institute. It advocates the convergence and contraction of wealth. What would it take for this to really materialize? I'm saying we could simply put a cap on wealth and then use that surplus to ensure everyone has a means to subsist. If we were to throw in free access to contraceptive services, then we would certainly see the start of genuine convergence and contraction. Environmental science reveals that human population size, affluence, and technology are all key drivers in degrading the Earth's environment. But we're still thinking in the box of growth economics, which increases all of these drivers. When we ignore scientific insights, we soon feel the pain. In the case of something like Newton's law. But with IPAT, the insights are not so evident, especially since industrial agriculture has enabled us to grow our population well beyond the carrying capacity of our planet. It is only the data on ecological overshoot that informs us that we are in ecological debt. These drivers of environmental destruction are all tools that could become solutions if we were to use them wisely. This is a screenshot from a little animation that features on my homepage. The data on ecological footprint globally shows that we have been overexploiting the entire biocapacity of Earth for more than 50 years. This phenomenon is called global ecological overshoot. To become genuinely sustainable, we need to release about half of Earth's biocapacity for other life forms to flourish and diversify. Extrapolating the data trends into the past implies that we started exceeding half Earth's biocapacity about 100 years ago, when our population was about 2 billion. If we were to minimize our consumption per capita, then we may be able to achieve sustainability for more than 2 billion. Dismantling the wealth hierarchy would make it much easier to minimize consumption per capita. The social upheaval that is escalating in America right now is evidence of the momentum that is building for the flip from growth economics and wealth inequality, massive wealth inequality, to what I refer to as equitable IPAT degrowth. IPAT degrowth means a concerted effort to return within the carrying capacity of Earth in a way that minimizes human suffering. Yet all our politicians still and educators are advocating and teaching growth economics. The social reforms of the last 70 years are also under threat now from oligarchs who control the mainstream media. The shift to degrowth has many faces, everyone working on sustainability or diversity, equity, and inclusion. They all represent different facets of the degrowth movement. So far, no organisation is discussing the need to actually downsize the global economy and global population. And until now, that is, the fact that I'm delivering this talk under the prestigious umbrella of the Schumacher Institute represents a significant step in the progress towards equitable impact degrowth. The Schumacher Institute have also been kind enough to invite me to become a fellow of the Institute, which I accept with heartfelt thanks. It's the first time my work has been recognised by an official body. The Global Footprint Network offers an open data platform. It has a map of the world, and you can drill down into the data for a particular country to learn how their consumption compares with their biocapacity. This is an example of the type of graph obtained when you select a country. We can see from this that the Americans have a monstrously high consumption per capita. They have a very large and fertile country, and yet they are still exceeding their biocapacity within their borders by over 100%. We are not remotely sustainable right now until we limit ourselves to half Earth's biocapacity. Other life forms cannot thrive. With 8 billion, we need to be averaging under 3/4 of a global hectare per capita. Only the most impoverished parts of the world average such low consumption per capita. And these people lead challenging lives with short life expectancies. Anyone who believes that we can focus solely on overconsumption and ignore overpopulation has not recognized the scale of our ecological deaths. This represents humanity right now. Our frantic attempts at energy transition are simply causing us to break through the final threads remaining in our life support systems. We are perpetuating business as usual rather than thinking about changing our economic strategy entirely. Breaking the news that growth economics is now past its sell-by date frequently feels like facing up to a herd of stampeding cattle. In the film Australia, a young Aborigine puts himself between a cliff edge and a stampeding herd and manages to soothe the stampede. If you want to challenge the popular direction of the herd, it is important to stay calm, confident, polite, and assertive. It takes considerable determination and practice. So don't be downhearted at the outset. Persevere. The spectrum of the paradigm shift reflects the different degrees to which denial and delusion is chosen over scientific consensus. Our carbon dioxide levels continue to climb, and so does the surface temperature of Earth. Unless we can manifest a willingness to be guided by scientific consensus, the chances of us surviving this century will continue to decline. The United States are polarizing the debate, with the new government firmly choosing the path towards increased denial and delusion. Their leaders are attempting to eradicate the mention of climate change and also the social science surrounding diversity, equity, and inclusion. It now looks likely that they will crash the global economy in their effort to become isolationists. In this way, they are showing us how interconnected we all are. Our economic algorithms do not consider wealth distribution at all, and they are causing wealth inequality to grow. There are no hurdles to stop the wealthy from squandering natural resources on unnecessary and ecologically expensive enterprises like traveling to Mars. My advice is don't be a doomer, be a doer instead. We are in a bad place, but there are peaceful and there are enjoyable possibilities going forwards, and none of them require economic growth. There'll be much more fun, I assure you. It's so pressured, our world today. It is just a bit of reference background that you might like to consider later. These are just some of the people and organisations doing serious legwork to raise awareness about the numerous flaws in our socio-economic model. Bernie Sanders and Robert Wright actually need to be added to this list. Subhava Dasgupta is one of the few economists who admits that overpopulation is an issue. The Dasgupta Review was commissioned by the UK government. It was delivered in 2021. Although this contribution is significant and helpful, it still falls far short of maximising mitigation. When we declared that we have human rights, we fail to recognise the physical limits of Earth and the rights of other life forms. We fail to build in any acknowledgement of the need to work within the limits of Earth. This omission allows irresponsible overconsumption and overpopulation. I am suggesting a new concept to plug the omission in the Declaration of Human Rights. I'm suggesting that we declare a shared aspiration to downsize the global economy and population until we return within the carrying capacity of Earth. This aspiration could be ratified by the United Nations in the same way that the Declaration of Human Rights was embraced. The ratification process itself would stimulate awareness and discussion regarding our consumption patterns and inspire us on the path of collaborating peacefully to share ecological resources fairly during the downsizing process. We call this new initiative an aspiration for global Ubuntu. Ubuntu is a philosophy that recognizes the joy of sharing resources fairly. I remember reading about some research into universal basic income in which some Africans in a particular village were given extra income. Some of the recipients did not seem to benefit much from their additional income, and on investigation, it turned out that they had been secretly sharing their extra income with the other villagers. I have Africans who are very supportive of my work. In my experience, they understand the climate crisis and its causes much more quickly than my European and American friends. Profound system change, we need to lever our priorities at the highest level. Collaborating to implement a wealth cap to release wealth to enable everyone to subsist would bring a completely new set of priorities. Combining that with a desire to shrink our population back within the carrying capacity of Earth will empower people to protect their unborn from entering the unfolding meta-crises. Advertising and influencing can switch from promoting ecologically costly pursuits to those that promote health and well-being without incurring high ecological costs. There is also a bold and worthy initiative called the World Call to Action, which talks of profound system change. It is being led by the Club of Rome and the Council for Human Future. The aspiration for global Ubuntu would accelerate their work to even higher ambitions to share resources fairly as a matter of urgency. We have powerful mass communication facilities. We could easily promote a global Ubuntu philosophy. We could persuade people that pursuit of profit and population growth is very unwise in the situation of overshoot. A cross-party government would share the responsibility as we collaborate to provide the essentials for everyone. The basic provision would allow people to leave eco-costly employment, free them up to focus on services that enhance well-being with minimal ecological cost. Contraceptive healthcare would be freely available. Civilians would be asked to share their resources with local communities to build communal spirit and emotional resilience going forwards. We need to acknowledge the reality that business as usual is exacerbating a mass extinction event. A large section of our global workforce is employed in ecologically damaging pursuits that are non-essential. We need to release these people from that trap. It will start with teaching about the IPAT insights and overshoot. With a widespread understanding of overshoot, we can then implement an emergency wealth cap to facilitate minimal consumption. This will provide the excess funds to make basic subsistence available to everyone. It also prevents ecological resources from being squandered by the wealthy. The subsistence provisions would be accompanied with free contraceptive services to protect the unborn from sharing our predicament. Community hubs that work towards self-sufficiency will build up our emotional resilience and our sense of oneness. Our world is not a safe place for any of us right now. Minimal childbirth will free up a lot of time and energy for young adults as we all work together to identify how to assist in the downsizing process and the process of ecological recovery. These ideas are elaborated in my science paper. A Scientist's Warning proposes a roadmap to ecological justice. The paper can be found on the SSRN website for unpublished research. Only one person was willing to peer review the paper, and therefore it was never published. We can all get involved in the aspiration to return within the carrying capacity of Earth. My ideas are only one example of a possible path to maximize mitigation. We can all work to raise awareness and inspire others. When we persevere with non-violent language and science and reason, others will want to maximize mitigation. It is an exciting journey in which we are already discovering different values and different ways forward. Wherever you are on the spectrum of the shift, the momentum for profound social change is building very rapidly. To achieve genuine sustainability, we need to shrink the global economy and our population by about 75%. In this context, our sustainable development needs to be focused on spiritual and emotional development. The UN Sustainable Development Goals can only be achieved as part of a collaborative downsizing exercise. It might actually help us to rename them as sustainable degrowth goals during the time that it takes us to return within the carrying capacity of Earth. Some of us are gripped by the pantomime that is unfolding in America. Both Donald Trump and Elon Musk, and the adulation that they receive, are the direct result of a social structure that worships a wealth supremacy hierarchy. We are taught to admire people who accrue wealth. Their influence and their power is the consequence of an unwise set of social values. To make the massive leap in emotional maturity that is required right now, it will help us to rethink some powerful concepts that underpin modern society. Concepts like nationality, religion, gender are frequently used by people in power to divide and rule over others. We are a diverse species. Conflicts escalate with powerful propaganda designed to persuade one group to dislike and fear another group, to try to dominate over them. Our rules-based system serves the hierarchy of the wealthy and the powerful, that has defined our world ever since we ceased to be hunter-gatherers. Looking at the ecological data for Israel, its massive ecological footprint is comparable to an oil-rich Arab state. It operates with an enormous ecological debt, which is shown in red on this graph. The tiny slither of white underneath represents the available biocapacity. Israel uses about 17 times the actual capacity that it has available. It is dependent on fossil fuels to facilitate the greening of the desert. It's a hypocritical claim. All wars are essentially conflicts over resources, either natural resources, human resources, or physical man-made resources. We are living in a time of chronic overshoot, and this is driving increased belligerence from nations that once pretended to be peaceful, but in reality were always overexploiting and dominating over other people and nature herself. There are powerful parallels between the mindset that motivates genocide and that which drives the ecocidal desire for economic growth. Both require prolonged propaganda promoting fear and supremacy. The daily ecocide of business as usual is oiled by the wheels of mainstream media and global commerce. Genocide involves massive inequality of power, and ecocide is aggravated by oligarchs controlling a political agenda. The film The Zone of Interest revealed how genocide becomes normalized in the eyes of the perpetrators. Likewise, ecocide is normalized as we spend most of our time in comfortable concrete boxes where we are unaware of the suffering of other life forms. Genocide arises when the theories of supremacy are applied to other humans. Ecocide arises when we consider humans to be genetically more valuable than other life forms. This is especially ironic right now because we are engineering our own extinction. Both phenomena result in wanton destruction of life on Earth and habitat. To reorganize ourselves to align with the shared objective to downsize, we shall need to change our priorities. We did something very similar to this during the COVID lockdown. In the UK, we successfully changed our behaviour patterns overnight. We are in an emergency now, a global emergency. We can achieve vast changes very rapidly. Where there's a will, there is a way. The downsizing conversation urgently needs to begin. If we wish to become genuinely sustainable as a species, we shall need to prioritise the survival of life on Earth over the minutiae of our own brief stay on Earth. The satirical films in the Austin Powers series poked fun at the way powerful people consider their genes to be superior. Elon Musk has already sired more than a dozen mini-me's. Elon's agenda is increasingly narrow and demanding that his followers mirror his personal opinion. This is ironic for someone who bought Twitter to advance free speech. One can only imagine the overwhelming type of mental grooming to which children, powerful oligarchs, must be exposed. Elon's own upbringing reveals that he himself was abused emotionally as a child. There is a sobering paper published by the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, which presents the statistics on infanticide. It reveals that 1 billion children experienced physical, sexual, or emotional violence in 2017. We are all failing collectively as parents. We do not have a safe global village to offer a newborn. The child deaths in Gaza 2023 will further escalate the statistics on infanticide. Globally, we are performing as extremely irresponsible parents right now. The anti-abortion movement in the USA is ironically called pro-life, yet the movement offers no safety net when mothers cannot access abortion services and then find themselves with a baby that they cannot afford to feed. This has triggered a rise in the discovery of dead infants in dumpsters that have been discarded by mothers unable to support their unplanned newborn. I am particularly impressed with the work of the Fair Start movement. Their legal experts are striving to resolve the deep injustices that exist for any newborn arriving into our unequal global society. Furthermore, the work by economist Gary Stevenson is exceptional. He came from a very disadvantaged background in London, and his book, The Trading Game, reveals how many wealthy people operate much like the mafia. He points out how one's options are limited from birth when born into poverty. For these reasons, our democracies are neither meritocratic nor democratic. Instead, they are oligarchies. Raising children needs to be a shared responsibility. Indigenous wisdom observes that it takes a village to raise a child. Whilst we remain in overshoot, we need to aspire to minimize birth rates globally. Accepting this reality puts the folly of overconsumption and the pursuit of profit into perspective. It is an emotional evolution that is required of us. We are playing delusional games with the energy transition. We shall not be realistic until we recognize that minimal birth rates and minimal consumption per capita are prerequisites to genuine sustainability and the survival of our species right now. Our predicament is global. We cannot solve it without global collaboration, to peacefully shrink the global economy. There is nothing physical stopping us from aspiring to maximise mitigation from our predicament. The obstacles only lie in our minds and our civilization that is addicted to growth. It only requires humility and courage to steer into a very different direction. I am one of a small handful of people that believes that we can put our violent history of colonization and supremacy behind us, and we can work peacefully together to maximize mitigation. I firmly believe that we shall find the courage to change ourselves at this challenging moment in history. I believe that we can all learn to let go of the traditional family structure. We can let go of national identity. We can let go of the desire to dominate over others. We can let go of the desire for financial and material gains. We can learn to embrace our oneness and with a shared purpose to downsize and become genuinely sustainable. We can learn to embrace communal living. We can learn to work towards minimizing birth rates and minimizing consumption. And we can derive pleasure from the generosity that is involved when sharing resources fairly between ourselves and the other life forms on Earth. Many thanks again to Ian Roderick from the Schumacher Institute for giving me this opportunity to present my ideas for maximizing mitigation from the meta crisis that we are all facing right now.